Good evening. It is the top of the hour, and on June 9th, 2021, the special called meeting of the Billerica Historical Preservation Commission is now in session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and welcome for all of you being here. Commissioners, we have an agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as printed. Are there any discussions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. We don't have any, are we reading the minutes for a special meeting? Let's postpone the minutes
Yes.
until next meeting.
We
So,
can postpone.
okay. At this point, we have a time for public comment. You will be advised to keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes each. So if there are any comments or anybody who would like to say anything, now is your chance to do that, and we welcome you. Please give us your name and address.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Wes Dunlap. My home address is 20 Winter Park Lane, Powder Springs, Georgia, 30127. I am a member at Happy Valley Baptist Church. I'm also a property attorney. It was brought to my attention this week that there was a hearing regarding the building, and I was obviously unaware of any issues with it other than just me and my family attending the church. I spoke with Phil Daniel, who I believe spoke with the code enforcement and also with the Historic Society in regards to the improvements. He wanted me to look into it and obviously just discuss this matter on behalf of the church and see if we could obviously discuss moving forward with the building. So that's, I don't know if we can discuss that after the meeting or set up a time to meet, but we're here to attend and obviously be in support of improving the building.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wes.
All right. Are there any other public comments or anyone who would like to say anything right now? Okay, hearing none. Report of officers, board members, and standing officers. Anybody have something to report or bring up?
Old business or new?
No, not here. Okay, the purpose of this special meeting, as most of you probably know, is to take a look at, Ron, our specialist in zoning and planning, will be presenting the application for restoring the Connolly Marchman House. It was declared a local historic site back in 2019, along with 10 other sites. We are not police up here. I want you all to know that. But we are all well acquainted and trained in the exterior of a building. HPC is not concerned with the inside. We are not concerned about the finances of any inside. That's something completely different. What we are taking a look at is making sure that the local historic sites, whether it's a building, a place, a cemetery, it doesn't make any difference. As long as if there's any restoration to be done, it is done in accordance with the ordinances, not only in the state, but in the ordinances of Billerica. So we are really concerned about making sure that everything is replaced exactly as it should be with similar or like materials. I mean, obviously, old homes that were done with asbestos are not going to be done with asbestos. But if something is made of wood, it will be replaced with wood, not with any vinyl, not with anything else. So with that being understood, you understand why we are here, and we do have a quorum. So if there are no other reports from any of the council members, commissioners? All right. Ron Johnson,
Thank
you're
you.
up.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, commissioners and members of the public for being here tonight. We have an application for a certificate of appropriateness for what we commonly know as the Connolly Marchman home. It is located at 605 Dallas Highway, but it also faces Magnolia Street. Happy Valley Ministries, Inc. has applied to make some repairs to the home. It's currently has been in some disrepair for quite some time. This action was prompted from a code enforcement and from the city looking to have some improvements made to the house, being that it's in the repair or disrepair state that it is. So this special called meeting was called in order to address that, being that it is a very time-sensitive matter. Some materials have been already removed from the home, from the exterior of the home, which opens it up to the elements. So, and of course, keeping with good spirit and with working with our community, working with the applicant, we scheduled this special called meeting. We did not want this to wait until the regular meeting for the MUB because of the importance of this property to the city. The applicant has applied to have the, or intends to have the fascia boards, soffits, and the internal gutter systems either repaired or replaced. The applicant has emailed me, or at least one of the representatives on the application has emailed over to me a few links that I also shared with you as well, of the materials that they're looking to use and making these changes to the house. So we're, like I said, we are talking soffits, we're talking gutter systems. The gutter systems that are proposed appear to be externally mounted gutters. I believe they are aluminum, which would take the place of the internally mounted or internal gutters that the house has had since it was constructed. And also it looks like different types of plywood sheathing that is proposed, and finger joint boards. So we do have some photos of the house, and I'm not sure if each commissioner has received them, but we had some in our file.
We got them. We have them.
Okay, so you do have copies.
Yes.
Okay, so if you take a look, those are actually photographs that we had on file already in the city's servers. I believe these pictures may be from around the 2017 era, so there may have been some additional disrepair. I believe some of the commissioners have also gone out to the property, have seen some of the current conditions at least. But the applicant has also indicated that they are looking to replace some of the plate glass windows, not the actual wood, the wood parts of the windows, but just the glass itself, in addition to some painting work. So those last two items are not subject to the Historic Preservation Commission's purview, as per our design guidelines. So the applicant is here tonight, of course, to or representative as well, in case you do have some questions specifically for them.
Did you hear from the applicant?
Good evening. You're Mr. Johnson? Yes. Okay. Mr. Daniel, I did speak with him. He's out of town, was unaware of the meeting, and was also unaware of the approval with the explanations on the internal guttering. I did provide him a copy of that yesterday afternoon, and he understands now the requirements that the Historic Society is wanting done to the building. I think they're going to try to get a plan together, hopefully within the next week, on getting the internal gutter system, the fascia, and basically the entire, everything that's been cut out, replaced in its as original as possible. Also, they're wanting to do the painting, as Mr. Johnson mentioned, and also replace some of the glass work. And then I think that's what has to be done at this point. Then if there's other items, I guess we could discuss that. But it sounds like that the church is going to try to work something out to get at least those particular items. Yes, ma'am.
Let me get interrupted.
But if the commission has any questions, I have Warren English here, who has a construction background that has dealt with the issues in the past. He may have to step in and answer any particular questions about the construction, or I may have to get you an answer first of the week, but I'll be happy to answer or address any concerns that the commission may have.
Thank you. Actually, we have Board of Commissioners, White, who is a licensed contractor and restores homes. We have, at the other end, David Rogers, who is not licensed contractor, but he does restore personal homes. We have someone who is a member of the Historical Society. And please know that the Billerica Historical Society is completely separate from the Billerica Historical Preservation Commission.
Okay.
And then our newest member, Angela O'Neill, is a businesswoman here on Main Street. I happen to be Dr. Mims, a retired college professor interested in history. And so that's the makeup of this particular
Okay.
thing. So the questions that they ask you, I'm sure will be such that they understand and that you can clarify for all of us. I was out there, I know that 4 of us have been there to see it. And so we have actually been out to look at it in addition to seeing these pictures. So any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner?
I'm sorry, is it Mr. Dunlap?
Dunlap, yes, sir.
And just to make sure, you'll be representing the owner of the property, is that correct, for answering questions?
I will, yes.
And I'd also like to just say, can you hear me with the?
I can, yes.
mask on? Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here. And I'd just like to say that a little more information was brought forward just now during Mr. Johnson's presentation. So my questions were written beforehand in preparation, so forgive me if some of it's redundant or maybe has been addressed, but I'm gonna ask it even if I know it's been pointed out, because I just wanna make sure that what I heard and what the applications say aren't in conflict.
Yes, sir.
Just for confirmation. Okay. So the first question I have is while it's not part of the current COA application, it pertains to the roof. Again, it's not part of the application, but of course, the damage that's being repaired is water damage. So naturally, I'm just curious about the roof. Are you or the other gentleman able to make a comment about the general condition of the roof and the materials?
Go ahead and approach them. Can I answer from here? The
have to approach.
problem, most of the
Sir.
damage is.
Mr. Engels, come up.
Please come forward.
Most of the water damage has been caused by the internal gutter system failing, which I have in the past commercially repaired some of those on other historic buildings up in the Rome area, and they're known for failure. But we intend to put it back with an internal gutter system, like it was, if that's what you like. We were gonna avoid that simply because it will fail given time. It will take quite some time to fail. But what our intention is, if you want it restored like it was with original materials as best as we can, that is our intention, to put the internal gutter system back into effect as it was. The roof certainly could use some attention, and it's on the list of things that we would like to fix. And so as we progress, I guess if it comes to that roofing material, I don't know if it's even available anymore. Y'all may have more knowledge of that, the metal roofing shingles. But the most of the damage is caused by the gutter system.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, name and address also for the record.
Okay, my name is Warren English. I live at 72 Beams Way, Dallas, Georgia.
Yes, I do have a question. The overall facade of the house has a dental type molding. Are y'all planning on putting that back as well? Okay.
I'm sorry, what was the answer?
The answer was yes.
For-
Yeah.
for-
And
all the dentals?
dental molding. Yeah, it was part of the original overhang. And when you say you're replacing the windows, are you just doing the frame or are you doing the windows itself? The glass itself?
Let me interject something right in here. Replacing glass is important. Obviously, you've got a couple of broken windows as well.
Right.
But I happen to notice that some of the molding on those windows is rotten. So will you replace the wood on those window frames that need to be replaced and not just scrape them and paint them over?
Yeah, I was looking at that on the pictures as well.
I have in the past in historic preservation used Bondo to repair the wood and chapters on the front columns were destroyed by the state of Georgia to save some honeybees. That's hard to redo. But if y'all accept Bondo, we'll Bondo what we can of the original wood to try to preserve it. Bondo lasts forever.
I think what she's referring to is the frame itself, like some of them are pretty much gone.
Also, I can show you pictures where I've restored the historic shows.
Sure.
And you can't tell they're not made.
And let me say on the behalf of the historical preservation, we love what you're doing. I mean, appreciate this 1,000% because we want to see just as much of that house finished as you guys do. And I just enjoy the fact that you are doing something to it. So regardless, our questions, don't let that deter you too much. Other than that, the molding and the corbels and the roof, that's pretty much, how are you going to connect the roof line to the fascia?
That's probably a question.
I'm sorry, could you please come up here so that we can hear you on the microphone?
Where
That
you're-
question was probably best answered by Phil. I have not been involved in the nuts and bolts of this. Phil is a very skilled craftsman.
Okay.
And that question would be better directed for him. Unfortunately, he's out of town or he'd be here.
Okay. The drip edge where it follows to the fascia, where
Yeah.
it's missing?
Like I said, I have not been on a lift and looked at it or put my hands
Gotcha.
on it. I've
Okay.
seen some similar in the past, but Phil could answer that question. And,
Okay.
However you require it, that's how we'll try
Well,
to
like you said,
accomplish
the roofing is no longer available, so,
it. Yeah, and that, so what can we come up with something that we can both live with in a kind of historic?
I'm sure that's possible.
You know, that we just find something, some common ground that we can use something y'all be satisfied with.
That will work too.
Yes, sir. So,
Give me that specific question, and I'll get with Mr. Daniel. and
Where,
make sure
where
we answer.
the drip edge is meeting the fascia, there is no roof there. So I guess continuing where that is, that's gonna, it's gonna require some type of roofing material.
yes, sir.
I think that's what they were concerned about as well.
What can we use?
I would probably be in line to finding something that was kind of, Relative
Y'all
or-
can point us in the right direction.
We sure will.
Because we have to satisfy y'all naturally, so.
Yeah.
If you can give us direction, we'll try our best to follow it.
Actually, Mr. White, because you've restored even your own home and
Mhm.
others, are you familiar with some of the places that you go to in addition to Home Depot or Lowe's or anything?
There's
where you
several
can find
arch-
materials that are similar?
architectural salvage places around Atlanta that
That
are.
would be probably your only bet for
Right.
that type of roof.
Yeah,
if
and
you
and
could
look,
find the
that's,
quantity
that,
of it.
and the quantity and whether you're gonna find the same thing is gonna be a needle in a haystack, so I would
Yes.
not even, even, it might be even behoove you to do, some type of flashing to meet it for temporary use.
Yes.
Um,
Whatever would satisfy the
Right.
city, we're up for that.
Other than that, that's pretty much all my concern is, and the dental mold to kind of make the whole facade match what it used to be.
May have to get a lift back out there, and maybe if y'all are not afraid of getting on a lift,
Oh,
go
no.
up there, and if you're in construction, you're like
Yeah.
me, I work on them all the time.
Pretty much.
Go up there and look, and let's come up with a plan.
Sure. I don't
You know,
mind doing
Come up
that.
with a plan, come up with some materials, and try to get
Like,
it
we're,
executed.
like, again, we're on your side. We want we want to see this
We
through
all have a
too.
common goal.
Correct.
And we all have a common problem, and that's
Correct.
trying to accomplish it.
But
So
we
that-
do appreciate you guys, doing what you're doing there.
It's long overdue, and
Yeah.
COVID hadn't been kind to our finances, but we still would like to try to, we would love to see that thing looking pristine.
Yeah,
That
me
would be
too.
an asset to the church, but
Mhm.
we'll try to do everything we can.
Sure.
We really appreciate that. And
Yes.
as I said, most of us up here are familiar with a book called Why Old Places Matter.
Yes.
And so we are really wanting to make sure that Gilbert retains its uniqueness. We're growing, obviously, by leaps and bounds. I've only been here 31 years, but I've seen a big change in the 31 years I've been here. But some of these grand old lady homes, as we say, and places really do mean a lot to us. And at this point, I can quickly tell you that I'm in the process of doing a book on Voices of Billerica, because we have books written about places, but we don't have the voices of the people who have lived there, who remember some of these things. And so for that reason, we are really passionate about making sure that things are restored at least as close as possible using similar like materials.
Yes, ma'am.
And is that, Mr. Lane, do you have anything?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Without trying to beat this to death, I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Yes, sir.
So, the main concern to me is anything ornate and all the original architecture of the building.
Yes,
So,
sir.
I understand that there's gonna be soffits and fascias put back, and there'll be wood. But the cornice, the dentils, I don't think we've mentioned the crown molding yet.
Yes, sir.
There's crown molding around the entire perimeter. It still remains on the front facade, if I recall. And I do not see, sorry. So I just want to make sure that the simple way to put it would be that the house is going to look like it did before the repairs or demolition began. But the detail is, that I'd like to know, is everything, including but not limited to, the crown molding, the cornice, and the dentils, and all ornate architectural portions being put back as is.
Yes, sir. I'm familiar with historical restoration. It has to be back like it was in 1915 or as close as we can get it. And that is our intention, since that's your desire. And yes,
might I also say, Warren, also, if this is a monetary issue and the church doesn't have enough funding at this moment to finish, I would not be opposed to a phase one. Just get the thing up and covered, and then phase two, you can come back with a decorative dental mold, the crown mold, and let that be phase two. But it would be, just get the facade and overhang back.
we would hope to be able to do the facade and the overhang all in this phase
Right.
if money allows.
Right. That's what I'm
Uh,
saying. If it is a
so-
monetary issue, I would, if you
Right now, we gotta
guys,
stop the bleeding. We
Right,
gotta do
that's-
something to get the water
that's kind of where I'm at.
out
If
of
you,
there.
if you need
And,
to just get the overhang up first and get the roof line and everything back in order, and then phase two, come back with the dental mold crown and then the decorative part of it, that would be fine too.
Our intention was to try to stop the water intrusion into the building.
Correct.
And like I said, we'll do whatever we can and go as hard as we can. I know when we first addressed this issue, and I can't remember, it was 2015 or 16, we met with the city, and they had employed a historic restoration consultant, and he helped us apply for grants the first time, and we were turned down, which it's kind of like applying
Yeah.
for anything, you get
Right.
turned down. We have no one that is really in their wheelhouse. Now, Wes and his firm may be able to help us with that.
Sure.
But we would love to apply for the grants and use them, and we can work with Mr. Daniels will be our contractor. Like I said, he's very skilled.
Okay.
And just, y'all help us, if you could give us some
Sure.
guidance as to how to do this in phases where we can apply for a grant saying that, well, this money, we intend to do this.
Sure.
We want to see it fixed. It's more than anybody in this room, I
All
guarantee
right.
you that, because
May I
one,
ask
we
a-
like history, and two, it's a sore spot. We're like the kid at school with a hole in his jeans, and we
course.
just can't do anything about it.
I'd like to ask a point of a legal point of clarification. You mentioned the contractor. I happen to know that, if you've got a contract with a contractor, that's one thing. But I also know that the owner of the building is also the one who is liable for it.
Yes,
I want to make sure that the owner of the building and the contractor have both signed a contract, because given the scenario where the possibility is that the contractor does not finish it, and another contractor comes in, another contractor can say, I'm not bound by that contract. So I want to make sure that the owner of the home is actually as liable, because you are the ones who are liable. I want to make sure that it is going to be cohesive together.
I will probably defer that to Mr. Dunlop, but right now, Philip Daniels is an upstanding member of our church and very
great.
involved, as well as a skilled craftsman. So I would trust him to work on my own house while I was out of the country.
Okay.
But anyway, if we need to sign a contract, that's his business and whatever it has to do to decide. But whether we sign a contract with him or not, we're liable.
Right.
I mean, so if we feel safe dealing with Mr. Daniels without one,
Okay.
I've
I've got a question for our staff.
We have an application that we include as part of the building permit process that
Right.
gives
Gotcha.
contracted and things of that nature. So we do have an application, if mentioned, that is needed, that we do insert into the application.
Thank you, Kirsten, for that clarification, appreciate it.
He had a question.
There's a question out in the audience. Is there any other questions or any more discussion or any questions from the council?
Yeah, I'm still chipping away at this a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to finish up on the topic.
Go ahead with his question if you want.
Excuse us, one of our commissioners must leave tonight. Actually, her son is being baptized in another hour, so she's got to go back. Thank you. Okay.
So on the crown molding and the dentils and all the ornamental thing, the architecture that's been removed, is it somewhere now being restored? Are samples of it now with someone who is qualified to replicate it, or has it been trashed? And if it's been trashed, how do you intend to replicate it? Make new, or, how are you gonna rebuild all those dentals and?
Ooh, like 2x4
So
staggered
where
molding.
is the first stuff, the original?
The original, that's a question for Mr. Daniels, who was not aware of this meeting and is out of town. Most of it was trash and not restorable, but we have plenty of examples left on the
On the
rest of
front
the
side.
building. We only demoed the back, so to replicate, if I have to make new dental blocking or have it made from a
Right.
millwork company out of fur, we have an example to follow. So what happened to the material that's been removed is, I don't think is a kind of a moot point, as long as we put it back.
Would be replaced with like material?
Like materials,
Yeah.
yes, sir, that's what, we're wanting to follow the guidelines of
Yeah.
historical restoration and to satisfy this committee. And whatever we have to do that, we are willing to do that and work with y'all
Right.
on this. So you tell us what you expect, and that's what we'll try to give you.
Right.
Commissioner O'Neill, any
Yes.
questions that you have?
No, not at this time, thank you.
Okay.
My suggestion, Ms. Mims, is to get with the committee, and we can start circulating emails, and you guys can see what's gonna be used, how it's gonna look. That way, we're all on the same page as the restoration goes.
Pretty much.
Okay, I would ask that you send that to Mr. Johnson, please,
Yes.
and then he will send it to us. That
Okay.
way because that way he knows what you're doing, and he's got all of that written down for the city, and then he will, again, disseminate it to us.
The way I'm thinking about it is, we just start developing, here's the phases, here's the deadlines we're gonna try to meet to do this kind of work, here's what it's gonna be, provided to Mr. Johnson, the commission can review it, and then, if we can just get the ball rolling, it
That's
seems like
great.
it can kind of work
Great.
that way. But I get Mr. Lang's concerns about, we wanna make sure that but like you said, the back side, I don't know if it's the back or what do you call it, but the side still has all the
Yeah.
ornamental woodwork, so we should be able to have that to work off of. I went over there and looked at it myself
I
this
mean,
afternoon.
Great,
so-
thank you.
replication down to its 1/8 inch, we're not concerned with that. I mean, I'm not.
As long as we just don't have just plain wood up there where you got the ornamental.
I think you just
wood.
want to recreate the facade.
Got
That's
it.
pretty much it.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Other comments from our participants or citizens? Thank you.
Yeah, my
Your
name is
name?
Tony Reeves. I live at 601 Magnolia Street. I'm on the corner of Dallas Highway. Most people know the house. I've spent literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on that house. So I've lived here for 22 years, and I've watched this house go into disrepair for 22 years. I actually tried to purchase it, and I was told they'd rather put a bulldozer through it at the time. That's the exact words, okay? So I'm glad something is finally starting to happen, but I think as far as from y'all's perspective, y'all got to do this in a graduated approach, because Happy Valley, I'm sure, does not have the funds to do what's going to cost to restore this house. The internal, Mr. White mentioned it. It may have to be phased. This thing needs to start from top down, not worry about changing windows at this point. Needs to start top down and get the house protected. I'm a builder. I've been a builder for 25 years. I've got extensive knowledge. I've renovated hundreds of homes. I built some of the largest homes in Atlanta, 20, 30,000 square foot homes. I'm very versed in everything. I'm very willing to offer my free advice to the church if they need it. I live across the street. I'll come over in the morning, in the evening if I need to. I can help them. The internal gutter system is a very complex system. personally, it's not, again, as the gentleman mentioned, it's not a matter of when it's going to fail. It will fail at some point. I think we need to look at possibly external gutters if it can help them use the money elsewhere. Again, the roof is well past life expectancy. That roof needs to come off immediately and start from the top down, and then start fixing the rest of the house as you go. Because if you don't start from the top, nothing's being accomplished. I think there's a lot of materials that are in the marketplace today. I don't think the Historic Society should get hung up on going with exact like materials from 100 years ago. We don't drive cars from 100 years ago. We can still make the house look very nice using better materials in today's environment. The columns on the front, the gentleman mentioned it was the state of Georgia. I recall it very differently. There were honeybees in those columns. I remember it very vividly because the chainsaw came out, and that was the way they solved the problem, was they took the chainsaw and cut out very large chunks. As I came over and said, there's other solutions that can be done, as they were cutting the capital in pieces. Those capitals can never be replaced now, not to match. So, again, I think y'all should encourage a graduated sequence of events, because they do not have the money. They can't even move the limbs that came down in the September storm of the hurricane that have been sitting out at the street for 9 months. So this is gonna cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this properly.
I appreciate
So-
that, and I understand that completely. Again, because Historic Preservation Commission has nothing to do with the actual cost, and we know that we can, with your expertise in helping them and volunteering, I see somebody else in the audience who also lives across the street and is familiar with it as well. The Nortons are there, and they've restored their house as well. We also happen to have a woman who is a relative of the original Marchman family in the audience tonight. And so, yes, all of this is very important, and I think that Commissioner White's suggestion about doing a phase is a logical way to go, and at no point do we ever say that it has to be replaced with exactly. We're just saying something that is similar so that it looks like it, because obviously you're not going to find that. I know my ancestors were in the Revolutionary War. We're not going to find a house in the 1800s that's going to match that. So as long as it's like, and again, your home is beautiful.
No, well, thank you. And it's positive that this is being done now finally,
Correct.
because the house is almost at the point where it's going to
on-
be beyond repair if the roof isn't
Yeah.
resolved. And a lot of pulling off the fascia board obviously is a start, but it's kind of working backwards.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
what's happening already.
I would like to see them put a tarp over it immediately, because the weather for the next few days is bad. And after being and seeing that water coming in, something needs to be done until you can get that roof done. It needs to have a tarp on it to keep that water from coming in.
We desire to do that, we were told to stop
Right.
all work.
So let me ask you, when it, if approved, when would the construction start?
As soon as,
Okay.
Phil Daniels is back from Florida,
Okay.
he cleared his calendar to do that.
Yeah, I agree 1,000% with what you're saying. That's, I think, expedience to get this thing done. Just to get it covered up at this point, I think would be great. You're starting in the right area, but like he said, I don't think they have the money for a new roof and to tear off a new roof system, or I don't know if that's where the expenditure goes,
Well, if
but
they don't have the money for the roof, I don't see how they're going to even, the fascia and soffit. I
Right.
mean, that's as large of an item cost-wise
I
as
know
putting
as
a
well as
roof
you
on
do,
there.
Right. But at some point, we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And if this is, like you said, might have to start in the middle and
Well,
work
is there any
backwards.
money available to grant for the church?
Our job is to actually approve the application with the provisions that have been accepted by the staff, by Mr. Johnson's office, and given to us, where we are probably like the check and balance from our training to look at it. Again, we have nothing to do with any of the financial part of it, and we cannot touch that at all. So whatever they do internally for financial is completely up to the church and what you're doing. Yes, I know that there are grants out there. Some of them have other restrictions that you've already discovered. I know that they have in talking to one of the pastors. However, there are others out there. You just have to kind of go through and as a researcher, I know you have to kind of get through all of the nitty-gritty to find one that will be acceptable, and there are some out there. But at this point, I have to limit our discussion basically to approving the application with the restrictions, with the amendments to all of the things that have been agreed to, and at this point, that's all that we can do. But we are really wanting to work with you, and we are absolutely honored and pleased that all of you from Happy Valley and in the neighborhood are willing to allow us to have some part in keeping Billerica a unique place, and one that all of us can be very proud of, with the history that's in there, because we are a pioneer city. We have a lot to be proud of. We have so much history in here, and these houses are absolutely a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy, would you like to, no, okay. Amy happens to be the granddaughter of Dr. Marshman, yes, okay. Yes, council member.
Just a little clarification. Some of this started and it predated me being on council, but I just wanted to clarify, Commissioner Mims, and for the rest of y'all, some of the issue that arose with the previous commission, and at that time Janet Hyde was our community development director, was some of the grants they would have liked to have gotten were not available. The city couldn't participate because it was private property. It could not be used for private property. So I know that's one of the roadblocks they ran into, and I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Thank you.
Ron,
Okay,
is that
Ron.
something?
Just
Okay.
and just to piggyback on the councilwoman's comments, as far as financing, I did have a conversation with someone from the House of Worship, and it was a good conversation. It was regarding a grant. I did give a list of grants and tax credit type programs that the state and federal government have for homes and for properties that are designated historic. But unfortunately, not only is it just, it's something that the city cannot apply for, but it's also a situation where almost every single one of the grants are very specific to who can apply for them. So being that this is a house of worship, a lot of nonprofits and houses of worship are excluded from them. So we weren't able to find something. If it was a regular, property owner out here, then there would have been many options.
Since
but houses of worship and denominational types of businesses and property owners are unfortunately excluded from a lot of government grants.
And let me ask for clarification, because you've just brought up something else, and I excuse everybody, but I do have a law background myself. I'm under the impression that there are two separate deeds on there, that you have the church and that you have the Marchman House. And so, although the church may own the house, it is not at this point used for any religious services. So I'm wondering if you were able to separate that, if that would make a difference in applying for grants. It may be possible, because I know that suggestions have been made to make it a museum or to even have it as a place for the church to use for any programs that they may have. However, if they are two separate properties, I'm wondering if that is actually designated then as a religious edifice.
They, being that it is one property, it's not actually two separate properties, it's one. At some point in time, they must have been merged together. So that is one of the reasons why they actually.
If they were to subdivide that into a private property, would that?
They could go to the courthouse and separate them.
I would have to take a look at each individual grant to see if there is something that was on our list. It was a pretty comprehensive list, a couple pages long of different opportunities. They couldn't be helped, obviously, by the tax credit programs because they're a non-taxable organization, a nonprofit. So that wouldn't help them. As far as hard money grants, the state has a lot of them. There's one specific one from the state and from the Georgia Trust that I did forward over to them. But then when we got into the fine print and the nitty gritty, then it started to become increasingly clear that specifically houses of worship and denominational organizations were excluded.
I have a question. Is the church a 501c3? Yes. Okay. I remember seeing, maybe 60 days ago or so, the Carroll County Community Foundation had a grant out there for churches in Carroll County. I don't know when the deadline dates were. You might want to look into that. But I do remember seeing specifically for churches located in Carroll County, they had funding available. They had an application process.
Right. Any avenue, right?
It's a great suggestion.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Johnson,
What is the commission's?
what is your pleasure for us, and what do you recommend?
Well, my recommendation was.
Mr. Norton, you have,
Yes, I do have comment. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Ken Norton. I live at 703 Magnolia Street, just the opposite corner from the Reeves. And I need to apologize to the Reeves. I can't even tell you how many times people have come to my house and knocked on their door thinking it was my house. I don't know how their wonderful home could be mistaken for my home. But I apologize for that. But anyway, Madam Chairman, Commission members, you know, recently Villa Rica has been designated as one of the 15 friendliest small town communities in America. This home going forward is vital to the friendliness of our community. The success and failure of this project will have a direct impact on how we are perceived by visitors to our home. In fact, the home directly across the street from us, which sits directly in front of this home, is a very popular Airbnb. In fact, it has visitors there all the time and is very recognizable. So when people get up in the morning from visiting from all around the country, when we see tags on the back of their cars, this is what they see. And this is what they leave with when they pull away. Take away the wonderful time they've had in our fair city and the time that they've had in that Airbnb, this is what they see. And that's a very important impact. I agree wholeheartedly with what Mr. Reeves says. I have not built homes to the extent that he has financially, but I have built well over 50 homes in the high 3s, low 4s in my life. And I do have a substantial, background there. My questions is exactly what Mr. Reeves is bringing up. What I'm seeing being done to the home, while very much needed, is nothing more than a Band-Aid. And it's covering a facade. And I'm very concerned about a couple things structurally with the home. If we replace the fascia, that fascia's got to be attached to common rafters. What's the integrity of those common rafters? And what is, when they go up there and they put that fascia board up, what's the integrity? I mean, is there anything to screw to? Is there anything to attach it to? What kind of fastener is going to be used to attach that to? These wonderful columns. I mean, I'm sure that when this home was built, those columns were load-bearing columns. They don't look very secure right now. That's just me from, looking at the pictures. So I'm concerned about the integrity of that. That's all that holding up the roof. Holding up that roof. So if the church goes and spends all this money to do this work, that roof collapses, then it's just money down the drain. So those kind of things are coming out to me as far as what needs to be done going forward. And let me see. I have one other little thing here. I'm sorry. Nope, that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ken.
thank you, Mr. Norton. Wonderful. Okay. Ron?
Okay. So as far as the recommendation is concerned, I recommended approval with conditions, with 4 total conditions. Would you like for me to
Sure.
read them out? Okay.
Yes, please.
So the first condition would be aluminum gutter systems shall not be installed. Only wooden or copper externally mounted gutter systems should be installed. Should that be unavailable or unfeasible, then an internally mounted gutter system shall be reinstalled that mirrors the original gutter systems. Second is all dental, modillion, and other ornate design work on the fascias and soffits shall be maintained or recreated. Third, all fascia and soffits shall be painted and shall not feature any unpainted or untreated wood. And four, no roofing material is permitted to be removed or replaced. Shall repair of the roof be required, a separate application shall be submitted detailing the work along with roof materials to be used.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioners, you have heard the recommendations of the staff. Is there any other further discussion? And let me ask one quick question. You have agreed to all of those conditions as well? Okay. Do we have a motion to accept with conditions?
I motion to accept with conditions.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
I will say that, like Mr. Norton, and they all have valid points when I think right at this point, it is a Band-Aid over a bullet wound, but it's somewhere to start. It's somewhere to go ahead and stop the further, demolition of this home, I think. And I'm with you guys 1,000%. But I think we have to start somewhere, and I think this is where to start. At least something's being done at this point, because another 5 years, this will not be here.
Okay. We have a motion to accept the proposal with conditions and meeting all those conditions. We had a second. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carried. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. It's nice to have people at our meetings. When we don't have any proposals, we are an educational commission, and we do plan on other things as well. Yes, Commissioner.
Point of parliamentary inquiry, are we not to have a full debate after a vote?
We had discussion. After, when the motion was made and seconded, we had discussion.
It's my understanding that after a vote, there is a debate to take place. If not, then I'm going to move to reconsider and ask the council to reconsider what they've just voted on.
May I ask what your debate, may I ask what your debate would be about?
Well, yeah, by all means, but that gives me the opportunity to say. So I'm not comfortable with some of the things that I'm hearing, which are, one, doing, and these are not in any particular order, but, we're doing it in piecemeal. That's my word. I don't expect anybody to do from foundation to roof and spend those multiple six figures that I'm sure, I know from personal experience it would take.
Oh, yeah.
But if you want to do it in phases, I think doing soffits and fascias and then looking at ornamentals later is sub-phases. It's just breaking it down too much. It's like doing, a roof and doing, the vents for the roof later on, or it just doesn't make sense to me. It's just too much piecemeal. And then we, as the HPC and planning and zoning and ordinance, have to follow up on it and say, well, you were told it needed to be done by a certain date. What, is that a stipulation, that it must be done by January 1st of this date? What teeth are there? What's in place to make sure if it's not done? So I'm completely opposed to I agree that the house cannot be done in one time. It'll take 2 years and $250,000, and that's not what I'm proposing.
Right now.
But what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is to just isolate the fascias and the soffits and not do the entire gutter system, everything that was demolished.
Yeah.
If it's been demolished and it's been removed, it's gotta be put back.
And that's what they're doing.
At this time. That would be one thing.
I think that's what they're.
All right.
Well, that's not what I heard. And the other thing, sorry. I lost my point, my second point on that. It's not being done in stages with internal gutters which we understand. Everything that we talked about was going to be replaced. I yield to give some conversation and other comments while I get my thoughts together.
It seems to me, I mean, and I understand, yes, according to Robert's Rules of Order, you can have a debate. On the other hand, we've got licensed contractors who have understood the importance of doing it in phases, and we do know that the roof is really important. Once the roof is repaired, then those ornamental things can be put on, particularly those who have actually done it or have seen those changes taking place. But taking a look at the damage that I have seen, I honestly believe that the phase of that roof is probably #1 priority.
I thought of my other item, but the other thing that concerns me is I'd like to see an amendment to the original application, which is #1, extremely vague, and #2, does not match any conversation that took in very few instances does it match any conversation that took place here today. It doesn't mention anything about replacing all the ornamentals and so forth. And I'd like to see
Without the
that
HVAC
amended.
again.
And I'd like, whatever it is, that the application, it does require and ask for a detailed description of the job repair. I'd like a detailed description of the job repair, documenting what was all said tonight, because right now we just have this verbally. I'd like it documented, and I think it should be signed off. I know Kirsten made a point about the application, but I think it should be signed off by the owner, because the owner is the responsible party to, ultimately the responsible party to upkeep the property and to make sure that what was agreed upon between the owner and the city is adhered to. So those are my 2 points, is that I think it should be done immediately, and it should be done all at once, that this section, this repair, anything that was demolished. And I'd like to see an amendment to the original application and attach a page or multiple pages. We've asked a number of questions. You know what it is we're looking for, and to have that all be put in the amended application.
Mr. Johnson, can you address that?
Yes, from a staff's perspective, I do certainly agree with Mr. Lang in regards to having a detailed sheet of not only materials, but if there is any type of, I don't want to use the word phasing, but what the timeline is, right, for repair. The city, like I said in the beginning, the city does have existing code enforcement related concerns with the property. So as far as, at least from what I understand, the applicant was very much in favor of resolving that issue, and that's what has really brought us here today. So it appears that they are working in some good faith with the city in order to do that. But I think that tightening up some of this, as Mr. Lang said, and not having it as vague, we need something in writing other than just our application. Now, we do have record via video. This is all being recorded. And we do oftentimes refer back to these recordings to confirm because this is a legal record. Now, as far as anything related to the roofing, as you can tell from my conditions that I attached, the roofing, as far as the staff is concerned, is a completely separate issue because it was never applied for. So there's no permissions that are granted tonight to do any sort of roofing repairs, even though we did take some time to speak about roofing repairs. But that can be handled as a separate application at a separate time.
I think Sir West brought up the fact that they were going to go back with Mr. Daniels, I think, which is the contractor, and get through a itemized list of what was going to be done, and then resubmit it back to you and email it back to us, is what I think.
That's correct. That's the way that I understood it.
Right. I don't think that we're just going on, a wing and a prayer here. So, but their submission is, if I understand correctly, is just for soffit and overhang only. Just pretty much the whole soffit.
So in other words, we also have to have another application for the roof
Correct.
separately.
So
Yeah, just
that's
the
what
roof.
I'm talking about at this point, is just that. We're not talking about building the house up or doing frames or anything else. This is just to soften up, stop the damage
Soffits,
that's coming
gutters.
here.
Yeah, the things that were actually
That's
indicated on
it.
the application.
In the
correct.
actual first application, okay, yes.
Right. The other stuff is, I'm sure will come later. So,
I think we can all get on the same page and address Mr. Lane's concerns along with the city's concerns, is possibly just tweak the conditional approval, and we can just maybe
Correct.
summarize what was said tonight, and then we can also state in that it was accepted by Happy Valley, and that way it's instead of having to redo the application and then do another approval,
And then-
we can basically just say this is
and I think
an
Ron-
approval under these conditions. And then I think once we get on the same page with Mr. Johnson and with the Historical Society, we can get all that in the conditional approval and work off of that as kind of the working order or the marching orders moving forward.
Okay, that's fine with me, and with the commissioners?
Yes.
We're all in favor, okay, and you can add that to it. We do need to then make a new motion to add that to our previous motion.
Well, the commissioners would have to make the motion.
Yes, I know.
Yes. Oh, okay, I thought you're saying me.
Go ahead, you go ahead, Nancy,
Um,
with conditions.
yeah, so I still want to move to reconsider.
Yeah.
I would motion to accept the COA with conditions brought forth, what we discussed, and a revised list sent back to us to what the plan is, what your, I guess their plan moving forward is exactly. So, I would just be my conditions, that's all.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to accept the proposal with the conditions and amended conditions so that they match, and we're all on the same page as far as having the roof and all of them done in phases if necessary, which probably will be, but at least that's the amendment as I understand it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do we have a second?
Yes, I second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Opposed?
No.
Motion is carried. 3-1. And again, thank you all for coming. Please do come again. And it's nice to see all of you. And I hope that it's not raining when you leave. Thank you.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
I was looking to make sure we didn't have anything else on the agenda because I wasn't prepared. I was